All right. In your remarks, you talked a little bit about the passage of the American Rescue Plan. But one of the issues that really came up during the conversation over that bill was the way that the minimum wage played into that bill. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your position on the policy of the minimum wage, but also how that plays into the role of the Senate parliamentarian, things like cloture votes and the filibuster. Help walk us through that.
Sure. Well, as I said, as we started down the reconciliation process, that the minimum wage debate didn't belong in that piece of legislation. The reconciliation rules require that you only do spending matters. And minimum wage is a policy matter. It's not the federal government spending the dollars. It's the federal government telling businesses how they have to spend their dollars. And so I anticipated that the parliamentarian would rule that the minimum wage could not be in the package. That is indeed how she ruled. And I think it was the correct decision because the minimum wage debate is a debate that should happen in Congress on its own as a policy matter. And I'm looking forward to us having that discussion in Washington, D.C. in a bipartisan way to find a solution to this challenge. I will say that Arizona has managed this challenge. Through ballot initiatives, we have created an indexed minimum wage. And I suggest that that's a policy that the federal government might want to adopt and look at the way that Arizona has managed the same concern.
Got it. Do you want to comment a little bit about your position on the filibuster generally?
Sure. You know, Arizonans know that I have always opposed eliminating the filibuster. And I believe that position should be held whether you serve in the minority or the majority. And years ago, I said to my colleagues in the Senate when I was in the House that it would be a mistake to eliminate the filibuster. The Senate was designed to be a place where people from different parties and different states come together to find bipartisan solutions. And my opinion is that when the Senate is broken, and some would certainly argue that it is, the solution is not to get rid of the rules. The solution is to change our own behavior. The filibuster is designed to bring senators together, to find bipartisan compromise, to bring folks from differing perspectives together, to find comity. And I believe that now more than ever in our country's history, it's important for us to seek this common ground and to solve these problems in a bipartisan way. Right. So you'll see a lot of news about the filibuster, but the reality is it's kind of insider baseball. It's not something most Arizonans are thinking about at the dinner table each night. But folks can count on me to hold steady on my commitment to bipartisanship, as I always have. And I believe that this procedure, this rule in the Senate, protects that push towards bipartisanship.
In your remarks, you talked a little bit about the importance of relief for our restaurants and our venues. What else about the bill garnered your support? What else do Arizona's job creators need to know about passage of this bill?
Well, Garrett, there's a lot in this bill that's important for business owners and particularly for small businesses. Now, I'm particularly proud of the Restaurant Rescue Plan because, as we know, restaurants have been hit harder than any industry in Arizona since the pandemic started. So this will be an incredible infusion of dollars that's more flexible and nimble than the PPP plan to provide help to these independent businesses. But that's not all we did. The Save Our Stages Act also provides an infusion of dollars starting in the next couple of weeks to places like Crescent Ballroom or Rialto Theater, who have not been able to operate since the beginning of the pandemic, but who we will all want to know are there for us when this pandemic ends. So we can join together as a community and enjoy good music and good food and our friends together again. But the bill also provides financial relief for the outdoor industry and tourism. And that's an important thing that I heard from our business leaders in Arizona over the last year in phone calls with the chamber. I heard every couple of weeks when we would talk together about how important it was to provide targeted relief for folks in the tourism and hospitality industry. So that's in the bill too. And the expansion of the employee retention tax credit is a big deal. Finally, this expansion will expand to include more businesses with special attention on the industries that have been hardest hit in the pandemic and will now allow you to cover not just employees who've been on the clock working, but those who may not have been working because of reduced capacity during the pandemic. So those are some really great provisions. Now, for folks who work for businesses, so many of the people that you all employ, they're going to see some infusion into their own households as well. There's the individual checks that are going out to wage earners across the state, but there's also an increase in the child tax credit, which is going to help a lot of working families have the dollars they need to buy a car, maybe down payment on a home, be able to actually kind of get out of this pandemic and move towards opportunity as we head into the future. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff in the package.
Absolutely. And we just want to say thank you again for your advocacy on behalf of the tourism sector. It's incredibly important, as you know, to the state's economy. So thank you for stepping up.
It was my pleasure. As you know, I'm a big fan of tourism, and I want everyone to come to Arizona.
Absolutely. We join you in that. Let's go to an issue that's in the headlines right now: immigration, asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border, a number of unaccompanied minors, real point of stress for local governments, as you know. Can you just talk a little bit about what's going on today, how this figures into your overall thinking about border security?
Well, nowhere do we know more about the federal government's failure to address immigration than in Arizona, right? Folks know I'm a child of the border, born and raised in southern Arizona, and this has been a problem my entire life. And the federal government has refused to fix it my entire life. So this isn't new, but what it is an increasing problem, particularly during a pandemic. And so the flow of migrants who are coming to our ports of entry seeking asylum have caused unprecedented challenges for our border communities. So I've done a couple things. First, as folks might know, I'm the new chair of the Border Management Committee in the United States Senate. And so my committee has the purview to address this issue. And we believe that we must both treat migrants humanely and fairly as they come to our border, taking care of these unaccompanied kids, making sure they're safe, don't get COVID, finding sponsors to take them into their homes. But we also have to do something about the flow. This is not sustainable. We can't continue to have thousands and thousands of people present themselves at our southern border every single day. We cannot have all these folks come into our country. And we certainly can't continue to have the Department of Homeland Security drop off individuals in small towns like Gila Bend. So I've done a couple things. First, I wrote a letter to President Biden along with Senator John Cornyn of Texas, where we urged him to use all available authorities to address this border crisis and to do so immediately. Second, Senator Cornyn and I are working on legislation to try and address this asylum problem so we can reform the system to slow the flow and not have an unsustainable rush of migrants who come to our border every spring. And finally, I successfully included $110 million of funding into the COVID relief package just several weeks ago that will provide funding for local communities and NGOs in the border to help with the humanitarian crisis of these unaccompanied kids. So we're attacking this problem from multiple angles, but the reality is that Congress has got to do its job and work together in a bipartisan way to solve this crisis for today and for the future, which is why I'm part of a bipartisan group that is working on this issue in the United States Senate to try and find a resolution this spring.
Excellent. Well, let's go to some good news that's in the headlines. Like you, Senator, the Arizona Chamber, we are elated about the news that Intel is going to be making a major investment in the Valley. We're getting ready to welcome TSMC as well, really solidifying the state's position as a leader in semiconductor manufacturing. So I know you are a supporter of the CHIPS Act, so I'd love to get your thoughts on that. But also, do you see an opportunity in the upcoming budget process to advance this industry additionally? And maybe there are some more opportunities for R&D in Arizona coming up.
I think there certainly are. So I'm so glad you've asked about this because our CHIPS for America Act is a bill that I'm incredibly proud of. We got this passed at the end of last year, and it basically creates more incentives to do manufacturing of microchips here in the US. Now, this is important not just for our financial security, it's also a national security imperative. We want to make sure that we're creating these important technologies in America. And so Intel coming to Arizona with this massive investment is just incredible news. But there's more to be. And recently I talked with Secretary Raimondo, the new Secretary of Commerce, about the importance of supporting this industry and bringing more of those jobs back into the US. Of course, we want them all in Arizona. And I'm really lucky to also be the chair of a committee in the Commerce Committee that deals with aviation and innovation. So I'll be doing more work with my colleagues across the aisle to support not just the microchip industry and not just the semiconductor industry, but also other innovative technologies that can cement our place as a technology in the country and the world.
Outstanding. We want Arizona's business community to be as and business environment to be as receptive to those types of investments that you just discussed. There is some concern right now in the business community, as you've probably heard, an issue that our friends at the Arizona chapter of the Associated General Contractors wanted me to bring up with you, that there's a bill that passed the House, the PRO Act. Give us a sense, as this bill makes its way to the Senate, where you intend to be on this. We know it's an evolving issue, and if you'd be willing to have a discussion with employers in Arizona about our concerns about this bill being a disruption to the workplace and to our business environment.
Well, I would welcome such a discussion. As folks who are listening today know, the way I make decisions on behalf of Arizona and for our constituents is by listening to the business leaders who will be impacted by these decisions. So I want to discuss this legislation, and I want to know the impact it would have on Arizona jobs and the economy. Now, there hasn't been any movement on the PRO Act yet in the United States Senate, but I can tell you that many Arizona businesses have already reached out to my office, and I know have discussed the concerns that they have with the PRO Act with some of the folks who are on our call today. Now, right now, this legislation is not scheduled to come before the full Senate, but we are watching carefully because some of the PRO Act provisions, especially in regards to the worker classification test for independent contractors, could become a part of other legislative ideas. So I would ask all the members who are joining us today to please stay involved with my office and help me by sharing information about how this would impact you and your company so that I can go back to Senate leadership and folks on both sides of the aisle to discuss the concerns that Arizona businesses have.
Thank you. We always appreciate that open door policy that you maintain. We talked about attracting the chip industry. That might be our 6C now, but one of the 5 C's is copper. And some of us in the business community, we were frankly surprised when the administration rolled back that environmental impact statement that was going to make the resolution copper project a possibility. So can you just give us your reaction to what's happened there? And maybe if you could tell us, is there a role for Congress in this project going forward?
I'm glad you've asked that because we have heard about this issue in our office already. So I want everyone to know this will be no surprise, but I do believe that proper permitting laws need to be followed. And so companies need to follow the process that the government asks. And I will say that my team and I are remaining engaged with all the stakeholders across the state and with the government on this issue to ensure that all the rules are being followed, all the dots are, being dotted and the T's being crossed. And folks can count on our office to continue working carefully with them as folks navigate this process, and we're happy to help in that process.
Thank you. As you know, it's an incredibly important project to Arizona's economy. So as always, thank you. And I just want to thank you for taking the time today. We ran through a lot of issues. We know you're extremely busy, and thanks for accommodating us in this virtual setting. I just want to say thanks. Thanks for your ongoing work in the Senate on behalf of Arizonans.
Thanks so much. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be with you. I'm looking forward to next year when we're all back together in person.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Thanks again.